Hey guys, this is the Motorcycle TransAm Podcast. Start this off with thanking our sponsors, Legends Motor Co., the Antique Motorcycle Club of America, Competition Distributing, and Veritas Vintage. Hey everybody, so we are back this week with the champ, Dave Currier. It's Kelsey and Sean again here with the Motorcycle TransAm, so let's get into it.
Hey guys, what's going on, Dave?
Well, I'm jamming hard here in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm so excited I can't even sleep. I've been thinking about this Trans Am race every day, and this bike is eating me up. I got to get on it, and got a lot going on. It's been cold here, so it's been a good time to be in the bike shop, and I got my fearless mascot, Hank the dog, out in the shop with me all the time. So I've been doing a little pre-race relaxing. I was in Aruba here, and I'm going to the Cayman Islands in a bit for a small time down there, and that's how you prepare for these long distance races.
I guess so. Talk about life of leisure there. Wow.
I am going to go to Meekum, though. I'm pretty excited about that. There's a lot of bikes out there, so it should be a good time. A lot of the guys will be there, and it's a time where we can all get together and renew old friendships and meet new people. So
yeah, Meekum's always a great time. There's a great collection out there this year too, with Urban Hirsch's stuff coming up. So,
well, I got a little extra money. I haven't spent it all, so we got a little there. Well, you never know what we're going to bring home.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What? So it looks like you're bringing back the old champ bike there, huh?
Yeah, the 1911 Harley is it's a proven commodity. It's a simple motor. The only thing about it is it's not fun to ride. It's probably the ugliest bike to ride of any of them that are going to be out there. It's belt drive, it's atmospheric valve. You got tons of issues. There's no clutch. You're burning belts up. It's just a handful to ride. That's the only negative about it. But it's a bike I really like, and when I come to the starting line, I'll be ready to rock. You know it.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that prepares as much as you do, Dave. So there's definitely no doubt in my mind there. What makes you come back over time and time again with that bike, that early bike, and that challenge?
Well, the challenge of any of these long distance races is you need to be able to come to the starting line well prepared with a bike that's going to make the distance. And this old girl is, I've got a lot of miles on it. It's been on 2 cross countries already, and I think it's got all the marbles to do it again.
Yeah.
After you get it all back together, how many miles do you think you'll put on before the race?
Well, I was just visiting with my crew chief this morning, and we got a pretty busy weekend planned. I got a lot of upgrades. I can talk about those whenever you want, but we're going to put a motor in it. I've got 3 1911 engines, so I'm not short of backup material to work with. So the thing I'll do is get it all done. I'll probably put 600 to 800 miles on it, and then it'll be ready to go.
Wow.
But this is mainly just get the motor broke in. This motor's been around the horn with me enough to where I know all the issues with it, and we've done a lot of tweaking to it, so I'm not too worried about it. But as you know, anything can happen to anybody at any point in time on these races.
Yeah, that's the thing about these endurance challenges. It's like you can be prepared as you can, but you just never know. Something might go awry during the day, and you could have planned as hard as anybody else, and it just puts you up. But
my biggest fear on all this cross country stuff is a flat tire.
Yeah,
that is a killer for me. And I've done some prep work. I've rode this thing with no air in the tires just to know what it's all about.
Yep.
I know what it'll do with flat tires. So, I know how far I can go with no tire at all.
So have you ever experimented? And I talked to a guy about this. I think it was in 21 while we were on the Cannonball together. But there was a guy talking about stuff you can run on your tire. It's like a foam almost, like a flat permanent.
I looked at that extensively. I ran it to ground. The biggest problem you have is it's mostly used in motocross stuff. So long distance on a pavement, the stuff will move, so you end up getting a lopsided tire. The guy basically said, I don't think it's going to work for you. You're rolling too many miles, too steady, and he thinks it'll move to where the foam or the liquid there's a couple options out there.
Okay.
So I didn't go down that road, but it is out there.
Yeah, yeah. I always wondered about it. I just figured if anybody had experimented with it, it would have been you for sure.
Well, you know me, I like to experiment with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. What are you looking forward to on this one, on the course from what you've seen of it so far, from what we've released?
Well, I think it's a great route. I'm really excited about all the places we're going to go. The scenery and the riding is going to be as good as it gets. I think that's a big plus. I guess the biggest fear I have, of course, on this bike, and I picked the bike, the 1911 4-horse. It's not a powerhouse, but I might come with an Offenhauser this time. We'll see. But the climbing on the front end of that through the Appalachian and Smokies is probably going to be the most challenging for me.
Yeah. I think for everyone, that's going to be the most challenging part. The first day you'll get through, no problem. There's no anything big, but after that, it definitely gets tough.
Well, hopefully this girl's ready to do it. I mean, I got you can't get this bike any better than what I've got it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I got a question for you. When you're doing these, you're not, obviously you have a Cannonball championship under your belt. You've done multiple cross country runs, and you see something like this event come up, and instead of just taking the easy route out, so to speak, of just riding a regular 100-year-old bike, what makes you want to take the 11 again? Is it something just in you that has to compete, or is just say?
Well, this kind of goes back to my start in motorcycling.
Okay.
Just to tell you a little bit about my family, my dad was the Harley dealer, and prior to that, the Indian and Royal Enfield dealer in Fargo, North Dakota in the late 40s, early 50s. So as a youngster, I was around motorcycles right away. My first ride was a 250 NSU, and I was 5 years old. I have one picture of me on that, and my dad would take me to the golf course. He would jump off, and I couldn't do anything other than run the throttle and the handlebars. And I'd drive around, and when I was ready to stop, he'd jump back on, and then we'd stop. So motorcycling got in my blood early on. And then the other factor that kind of motivated me into the antique motorcycle world and in general flat track racing and stuff. My dad was a flat track racer on a 48 WR Harley, and in the early 50s he was the tri-state champion, and Harley-Davidson wanted to get him on the team, but then I was born and I kind of wrecked his motorcycle career, and maybe it was good I did, but anyways, I was born and that ended his career on the flat track. So I got an early start on bikes, and that's kind of what has brought me to where I am today. My dad was a fierce competitor, very aggressive in the business world, just as me, and when I come to the race, I'm there, I'm really focused. There's one mission: take the bike, get it to the end zone, and make it happen.
Yeah. It's in all joking aside, Dave, it really is awesome to see you in your element and watch you do that, because it's like it's definitely inspirational for younger guys as myself and anybody that really does this. There's a lot of effort that goes into this, and it's not, some guys are out there just having a fun time. That's okay. Everybody's their thing, but like it really is cool to see the amount of effort and drive that you put into this, and to try to make these old things go across the country, because it's like nothing out there for sure.
Well, I gave serious thought to running a 23 JD on this one, but I just keep looking at the 1911, and I got to bring it to the starting line. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge for me to get it up and over top of wherever you're going to put us. And I hope like hell you've got a course laid out that is climbable.
Yeah.
You do have more than me as a single on this event.
Yeah.
And, I think The single is the most challenging ride of any motorcycle on a cross-country event. I know that on the 21 Cannonball, everybody laughed at me, and when I pulled into the parking lot, they all looked at that and said, "Good luck."
Yep.
Well, I made a believer out of a lot of people. The belt drive, the atmospheric valve.
Well, you were the first to get across on an atmospheric valve, right?
Yep.
Which is just crazy in its own right, but
well, I did a lot of. I probably have got 2 years of experimenting with the motor to get the atmospheric aspect of it to run right. I mean, my cruising speed will be 40 to 43 miles an hour, steady Eddie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's just where it's at. It likes that, motors talk to you. And whenever you're on a ride like this, in a long endurance ride, the Trans Am is a prime example. You need to listen to the motor. It's like a good woman. You got to give them what they want. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I hear you. I remember the days going across on the 13 single, and man, it's just like constantly praying. Every mile was a blessing, It really is an experience, though.
Mm-hmm. So, in addition to all the mechanical stuff you're doing with your bike, are you doing anything physically? Because your body has to be ready too. I know you guys. This is rough on a single especially is rough on your body.
Well, I'm fat and happy right now, and that doesn't mean I'm in race condition. I guess there's several things you got to do in preparation for this, and number one is you physically have to go through some exercises. I mean, every morning I get out of bed, first thing I do now is I don't work, so that's kind of helped out a lot. So I get a exercise routine in. There's specific things I got to work on for my body, but get the body in good shape, get plenty of rest, and then make sure the bike is all dialed in and prepared and ready. You need all three of those things before you get to the starting line. Yeah. And if you come to the line with that, it's not going to be anything easier, but it's sure in the hell going to give you a chance.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this course, it's not. I will say it's not like the most challenging overall, but the East Coast side of it in particular is kind of like a baptism by fire. We have the first days real nice and laid back, and it kind of gets everybody familiar with their bikes and the whole layout, and then from there it kind of turns into a little bit of a challenge, and I say that with luckily we have enough experience doing this, and personally myself riding a single, I kind of know what to look for, and Tom as well, as far as like judging, is this actually doable or not, so I think that's going to help a little bit as far as just trying to make it so that you guys have a challenge but also have a good time while you're doing it. So.
Yeah.
Well, rain can be a real factor for all of us guys riding on the Trans Am, and you got to just put your gear on, and the downside for me is I've got a belt for driving it. Right. And if the belt stretches, I mean, I had one hill on the 21 Cannonball that I used 4 of my 5 belts up just getting up one hill.
Right.
And the hill was too steep. The bike would not climb it. So what I basically did, I knew I was going to wreck each belt, but I had them stacked up ready to go, and I just hammer it and put the tension on it, go as far as I could, smoke the belt, put new belt, new lagging on, and do it again. And I finally got to the top of the hill, but that hill was non-climbable with a normal single.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if the belts are gone, you're done. There's no way to make it move.
Yeah, and you luckily had just enough, right?
Well, I bought 40 belts. Actually, I bought 45 belts, and I used 40 belts on the last 23 Cannonball, coast to coast.
Yeah, I think I remember when we saw you in North Carolina, you had a bunch of your belts stacked up, and it was possibly raining the next day. So you had all your belts stacked up, and then you cover them with a trash bag, I believe.
Yep, I had them all covered to keep them dry. And then we even built I've got a shield that goes over the front of the pulley area to shed water so that all your front wheel water doesn't end up on the belt and saturate it, because then it stretches and then you're done.
I remember that. You made the first one out of a pan, right? A pot.
Yep. I told my guys what we needed, and that night we went to Home Depot, bought an aluminum kettle, cut it apart, fabricated it,
I remember
covered it. It worked really well. But we've since we've since improved that. Now I've got a fiberglass one that's got Harley-Davidson emblem embossed in it, and it's painted that same color as the bike, so it looks pretty cool.
Oh man, you should have left the pot. The pot had a story to it.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part about this is the engineering on the side of the road. I know obviously you come in super prepared for this, and hopefully you have minimal of that, but is that something you also look forward to, is trying to come up with fixes on the fly? Or
Well, you have to be, I would tell any rider on any of these endurance races, you've got to be able to improvise, and what you have on the bike is really all you've got. Now, granted, you could pull into a farmyard and see if the guy's got any of what you need, but at the end of the day, you've got a clock too. I mean, when I start in the morning, the name of the game is don't shut her down until you're done and you cross the finish line to get all your miles and make it in on time.
Right.
But I remember on the 21 Cannonball, we left the lunch stop at a Harley store. I got about 8 miles down the road, and it started backfiring and popping. And I'm thinking to myself, well, is it fuel? I looked, no fuel. Then I said, okay, it's ignition. And so I pulled over, put it up on the stand, did a quick change to my backup coil that I had with me, lit it up, and took it the rest of the way.
Wow.
So you got to be ready. Like I said, the tire issue, that's the number one concern I have personally on the bike. Because if it goes flat, we saw a lot of flat tires. Now, I'm not running the Clincher rim. I'm running a modern day rim.
Yeah.
And then I'm running the Mitzler tire. It's a pretty hard tire, and we're doing what we can with it, but hopefully you don't get into a nail or anything.
Yeah, I know that's kind of like the worst fear of everybody is, getting a flat. That's probably one of the hardest changes, other than any kind of major motor issue on the side of the road, for sure.
Well, my motor's been pretty strong. I mean, we've tested, and the worst thing is I can remember sitting in the shop and we had it idling and it locked up. I had the clearances just too tight.
Yep.
Everybody wants to build them tight. Loosey goosey is always better.
Yeah, these old engines don't like to run tight. We found that out time and time.
Well, we're running cast iron jug and aluminum case, and everything's changing with the temperatures, and
right.
That the motor can only take so much before it's going to give up. Yeah,
and that's so. I know you said you have a couple spare engines, and I know obviously if you have to get to the point where you swap an engine, it's no good for as far as points go anymore. But
right,
what's the reasoning behind that? Just not ever giving up or not quitting, kind of keeping it going across.
Right. I mean, if you have a catastrophic and I lose the motor and there's no repairing it out there, I mean, it's impossible. Then you put a motor in, you finish the race. Granted, you aren't going to be in the winner's circle, but I'm not quitting.
Yeah. And then,
honestly,
that's what everybody, you go out there to do a job and do it the best of your ability,
And having all the spare parts on board, I think, is paramount. I would encourage any of the people that watch this podcast, make sure you've got a lot of extra parts of the things you think you might use, because you're not going to find them on the road. Now, granted, we got a great camaraderie with all the riders and the support guys, and they'll all help. But at the end of the day, I mean, there is only so many parts that'll work on a bike. And if you don't have some of those unique parts, and in my case, the 1911 is, I got to have everything because there's no other ones there.
So let's talk about some of your favorite memories on some of these endurance runs that you've done before, like a cannonball. I know you've done a bunch of cannonballs, a bunch of chases, and just personally ridden, on a modern or an antique bike. So what's one of your favorite memories from one of these things?
Well, I think it's obviously winning the 21 Cannonball. I mean, that was paramount. I mean, you can't even put it into words. The last part of that, we had a police escort, all the singles hung together, and it was just a really cool deal. I mean, finishing that race and winning that bronze trophy was quite, it's still hard for me to even talk about it.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But, I've had a lot of other experiences. I think the other one, I had a 1930 Model C, went into a gas station, had 2 pumps, filled it up, and I got a whole load of water. And basically, I had to drain the tank and then filter the water because there wasn't any other fuel. So I took a chamois and filtered the water, had to take the carburetor apart. I mean, I basically cleaned the whole fuel system. Well, it put me behind an hour, and I ran that bike wide open. And then the next day, the bike took a dump on me because I knew I was going to run it to the wall, and I did. I got in right at the end, but it didn't do me any good on the motor.
Yeah.
So that one was a kind of a tough one. But I guess every one of these events that I've been in all have different memories. Some are good and some aren't so good, but it's just it's a feeling of achieving something each day, and then the whole course, of course, finishing the race is what the goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a challenge any way you look at it, physically, mentally, and then obviously keeping your machine rolling.
So let's talk about your bike and kind of what you're doing with it to really prepare for all this stuff that could happen, might happen, definitely will happen. Let's talk about the 1911.
Well, it's in front of you. You can see it here. And basically, I've got it down to the frame. Right now, I'm working yesterday and today. This is my new seat suspension. Because when you ride the 1911, if you aren't a hard ass, you're going to be when you're done with it. And I'm telling you, I gotta come up with a seat that works, that's small, that fits the bike. So I'm working on that right now. I got about another 2-3 hours, and I should have the seat in a prototype to try it anyways. So I got the seat going on, the motor's out of it. Basically, the only thing I have to do to the motor is just completely go through it. We'll put a new piston in it, hone it, new valve, that kind of thing. And then the big feature that I'm working on right now is I'm putting a hydraulic disc brake on the 1911. And I've got the calipers. I'm using KTM calipers on the back, and I've got 2 calipers on one rotor. So I'll have 2 independent brake systems on the bike, but 1 rotor and 2 calipers. Wow. So that's going on. I'm switching the chain to a 38 diamond chain on the pedal start, because in the case of the 1911, the only way you can start it is you have to pedal it to get it running.
Yep.
And the skip chain always stretches. The problem with the stretching is my belt is so critical on how tight it is to be successful in climbing or even just general riding. So I can't move the wheel a lot. I mean, my belts are spot on. Everything has to be the same. So we're putting basically it's bicycle chain, and for no better term, and that won't stretch. It's pre-stretched. We just made the gears here. I got the sprocket for the pedal crank today, and I've got that going on. Obviously, with the wheels all apart, we'll go through and look at all the bearings, probably put new bearings in it, new tires. And the last race I was on, both my front and back rims were bent from hitting holes. So as soon as I'm done with this, I've got 2 new rims. We're going to respoke on the hubs onto new rims. And so I'm going to have a pretty fresh bike coming out of the gate. Mm-hmm. The other thing is we'll touch up the paint and stuff, but it's a rider. There's no 2 ways about it.
Well, yeah, I think it adds to the coolness of the bike too. Instead of restoring it every time, I think having original paint on it through all your challenges you've done with it's pretty neat.
And you try to just go through the bike, make sure that you've got all of the nuts and bolts. Anything that isn't quite up to speed, you deal with it now. Better now than on the road.
Yeah, and I think along the way, all the stops, I think it's cool for people to see this too, because a lot of them haven't seen a bike this old. A lot of people can't believe that we're bringing bikes this old that I've talked to, across the country. So I think it's cool for them to see too, and with like the old style paint and not touching up every little thing. I think that just adds to it.
Well, mine's kind of beat up. She's had a lot of miles. I don't know how many miles I've ridden this 1911, but I'll bet I got 8,000 to 10,000 miles on this bike.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably getting close to 10 on there now.
Well, I'm sure, because the testing. I have a test course, and we run that course. It's a 5-mile course, So, I mean, there's no traffic. It's great pavement. So you can get out there and really listen to the motor. You can do some things that you couldn't in a normal setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend a fair
are there-
amount of time doing that.
Sorry, are there any hills on that test course?
No. North Dakota has 0 hills.
I didn't know if it's North Dakota.
I'm in Fargo, and you can see Montana, and it's all flat.
Yeah, we spent some time in Fargo.
Mhm.
We know all about it up there.
Yeah.
What's your temps out there today, by the way?
Well, we're balmy weather. We're up above 10 degrees today, but 2 nights ago it was 21 below. Well, yesterday morning it was 21 below when I came out to the shop.
Yeah. See, you guys can keep that. Your weather's been encroaching down here in Pennsylvania, and we don't really like it. It was -10 up here this morning, and now we're back up to about 8 or 9 right now. So
yeah.
So I think the other thing is, any wiring, just go through and basically look at everything on this bike, nuts, bolts, everything will be scrutinized. And if it's not up to speed, it'll get switched out or repaired.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is I'd like to have this bike ready to roll as soon as the pavement's dry so I can get out. I want to get 500-600 miles on it. And then before we go to the race, I'll probably pull the motor down again and just go through it one more time and put a few more miles on it. I want to make sure my brake system and all that works. One of the things about the 11 and the 12 and any of these other older bikes is the brakes on them aren't very good.
No,
and
terrible.
This is not an easy bike to ride because it's tall, I'm short, and when I get to an intersection, I pretty much have to dismount because I can't let the bike sit in one spot or the belt will go up in smoke.
Speaking of that, give us some insight of how you ride this bike on a daily basis. Like, how do you treat your traffic signs, your normal law-abiding traffic? How do you do that?
Well, and I'm hoping that this course has minimal city. Going through cities with stoplights is the most difficult thing for me, because you got to be way in advance. You're trying to watch the map, get your mile markers, and then time the lights. And if you get in a situation where you absolutely have to stop and it's 3 lanes wide, you got to get off the bike and move it. So I'll get off the bike, dismount, and walk the bike, whether it's on the side, on the, up against the shoulder, or, just as soon as you can get back on it. Then in my case, I got to run and then pedal a little bit to get the thing going and then pull it into gear. And once the tension's on it, you got to, on any of these early belt drives, you've got to make sure you don't let the tension slip so the belt can rotate on the hub, because either your lagging is getting burned or the actual belt is. Now, you can flip the belt over and use the other side if you want, if you had to, but still, you lose all that traction, and that's all you have to make it move.
Right.
So city stuff, hopefully you have few stoplights and few stop signs. There's some other things that most of us riders do that they're all law abiding, that. So we make it through town anyways. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, those are actually some of my favorite memories of trying to make it traverse through towns on those bikes.
Yeah, Sean lost a whole pairs of shoes in that last one, I think.
Yeah.
It's just hard the old bikes are very difficult to get up to speed, and then you have a bad brake system in general. And then whenever you've got to stop or you've got traffic, it's just ugly.
Well, I mean, realistically, you're taking probably the hardest machine that you can across the country. I mean, there's nothing really. They were not designed for anywhere near what we're doing.
But that's what I like, Sean. I like the challenge of me against this motorcycle.
Right.
It's all about the motorcycle and me. Who's going to win today? And some of the stuff you can prepare for. Some unforeseen things can happen to you. I had one the last day of the 23 Cannonball. Put the bike to bed, got up, had 60 miles or 150 maybe it was that day. Anyways, started it up, going to warm it up, 10 minutes in front of the start, and it starts knocking. Now I'm looking, we shut it down, we drained the oil. John, my chief mechanic, we scoped the insides, not scored up, nothing like that. So anyways, I said, well, I'm going to the starting line, knock or no knock. and then it kind of went away. I ran that last day, and when we pulled the motor apart about 3 weeks ago, what we found was one of the cotter keys on the cam lobe arm. Part of the key had broke off and
Wow.
dropped down in the gears. It was still wedged in the gear,
Oh,
and
wow.
that's what it was. And the tale of that story is all my cotter keys internally were using different cotter keys. You know,
Yep.
you don't want them too hard where they're brittle, where you pull them open and spread them, and then over time, the fatigue. And, you know, we're running these bikes a lot faster than the bike was designed. You know, I mean, I'm turning a lot more RPMs than this thing was designed for. So there's a fair amount of vibration on it, and that took a toll on the end of that cotter key, and it fell off and ended up in between the cam gear and the pinion gear, and it was wedged in there.
Wow. Got lucky.
So you talk about luck. I mean, that's why I say anything can happen to anybody. You can prepare the best you want, and you just got to deal with it in the field.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've had a little bit of time to look at the route and the stops we've announced so far. We've announced most of them. So is there any day in particular that you're really looking forward to, or any section of the route?
Well, I think the two stops that I'm most excited about is one, you know, down with Matt and Wheels Through Time. I mean, that's you could spend a month in there. I could anyways, and I think that's going to be a really cool stop. That's probably my most notable one because I really like to look at that stuff. You know, the problem with a lot of this stuff as a rider, if you're in it to win it, you don't have a lot of time to look around at stuff. So hopefully we'll have enough time there where I can rummage around his displays and stuff a little more. That one, and then, you know, I've always wanted to see the Spruce Goose, and I think that's going to be a super cool deal to see that and whatever else the museum out there has to offer in Washington, Oregon there. So
Yeah.
those are my two. I guess the least favorite part of this whole thing for me is all the Appalachian and Smokies. I'm a flatlander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I just really I need to get over that and then get into some flatter country.
Yeah, that's kind of like the double-edged sword of this whole thing, and it kind of, you know, obviously you want to challenge yourself and you want to take that really early bike and, you know, obviously give yourself a shot to you know, take home the gold for the whole thing, but at the same time it's like it puts a lot of stress on you for the route itself. You know, every day you kind of wake up concerned about power more than anything, you know, on top of everything else that you're already worried about with your bike and reliability. But I always, at least for me, that's how it was. Every day I woke up, I was always concerned about hills and power, you know.
Well, coming into Maggie Valley on the 23 Cannonball, I took the rings out of it going in there. You know, I knew when I got to Matt's place that my motor was tired. Didn't score it up, but it got so hot because of what I had to do to get up those hills. It
Yep.
took the temper out of the rings, and you know my compression wasn't there. And when you lose compression, your valve on the atmospheric and it just goes downhill. So that was kind of a once we got in that night, then I could switch the piston out and get a new set of rings in there, and life was good then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a challenge. Like I said, with your, especially with that early of a bike.
So how many people do you have on your crew? And are they looking forward to anything?
Yeah, I'm using the same two guys, John and Tim. You know, Tim is a metallurgist and he's a machinist, airplane machinist. And John is basically my motor guru. John's background is he built a lot of the race sleds for Arctic Cat and Polaris. So, you know, we've used a lot of knowledge that those two guys have in putting this bike together. Spent countless hours trying different things. You know, they're pretty pumped up about it. They're excited about the stops. You know, those two guys, it's a nice opportunity. I think the way that we're set up on the TransAmerican is where they get up and they can roll in the morning. They don't have a course to follow, just go direct to the new site. We'll give them a little more time, maybe a little more relaxation because, you know, as a support team, you know, they get all the stuff ready. And when we roll in as a rider, you know, as soon as we go to the trailer, it's all hands on deck. And in my case, John and Tim and myself all wrench. So one side's John has one side. We inspect the inside of the motor every day. We look at the cam, pull the cam cover off. We do probably more. You know, Tim does all the belt work. I do all the fuel, gas, oil, any of the other nuts and bolts, tire check. Um, midpoint, I'm pretty sure I'll be switching at least the back tire on the next race here coming. Front tire, you seem to be able to get 4,000 miles out of that. It's not worth changing, but the back one, when you get halfway on this race, I can tell you my back tire will need to be switched.
Yeah.
So I'll have all that stuff on. But those guys are really excited about the routing. It's a new route. They haven't seen that country. It's a lot more leisurely for them once they're in the truck heading to the next city.
Yep.
But no, they're pumped up about it.
So do you have anything funny or unusual that has happened on the road? Other than, I know you and Tom are the odd couple, but any funny stories that you have for us?
Well, Tom and I met Tom, I don't know how many years ago it was, at Las Vegas. He had his engine lift stand in there. And so I stopped to look at it. And anyways, George was there. And I don't know how we got talking about Cannonball. And he said, well, Tom's riding that this year too. And so anyways, we talked a bit and became good friends. And you talk about the odd couple. They call us the odd couple because he's on one side and I'm on the other side on lots of issues. but we've become good friends, and we both like business stuff, so we talk a lot about business. Obviously, motorcycles, it's his passion and mine too, and so we've had quite a friendship over the years, and we visit a lot about things other than motorcycle now. I mean, it's just so a lot of people on the 2018 Cannonball, my back was so bad I couldn't get off the motorcycle. And Tom was running a 21 JD. And basically, he pulled up next to me. I'd stopped the bike to fuel. I couldn't even touch the ground, so I had to go and use the concrete island all the time to put my left foot on. And then I'd sit there until Tom put his bike up on a stand. He'd come up and hold the bike, and then I would get off of it. And quite frankly, without him, I would have never finished that race because I couldn't physically get off and on the motorcycle real easy. So we had some real fun times. Like we changed the oil at one of the gas stops. We got on and we rode about 4 miles. Tom pulls over and I pull over. I said, what's going on? I forgot to put oil in it. So he had no oil in the crankcase.
That sounds like something that would happen to him.
So the two of us have been known as the odd couple. So, but it's all fun and awesome friendship, and that's the thing about the TransAmerican. The people you meet, the support people, the riders, they'll give you the shirt off their back. Granted, you're still in a race, but yet at the end of the day, everybody is one big family. They help each other. You get to meet the greatest people because they're all like-minded, and at the end of the day, the antique motorcycle world needs a lot of us guys because we're the ones showing the youth what the antique bike world was all about. Riding one of these things is absolute. It's so cool to get up in the morning in Fargo, North Dakota, take the 1911 and run about 40 miles an hour in the prairie out here. You hear the motor, you hear all the birds. It's just, it's really, really special. Once you jump on a modern bike, obviously that's like the luxury liner, like the Cadillac, so you're more relaxed. But the old bike has been part of my love ever since I first started reading about them. I started reading about the first Cannonball, and I was so intrigued. I just followed it. Then I bought a 29 JD with a sidecar, and I was going to run that in the 16 Cannonball, and then they changed the years, so I was out. So then I didn't have any old bikes. So as I started looking at the 1915, I just loved the look of the 15. And so I ended up buying one from Terry Marsh. And then once I owned it, he said, you can't run it in a race like that because you're going to destroy our original bike. So he helped me find another bike. John Newman had one, and I bought that, basically put my race bike together and kept the other one. So now I've got 4 1915s, and I'll pan around the shop here in a bit. You can take a look at. I just finished one up, and I'm about done with 15s. I got enough of them, I think.
Yeah, that's a rare bird there. 15's a hard year to build.
So, other than that, the riding an old bike is just special. It grows on you. If you start reading about, I never really liked the old bikes. I was always a flat track, modern. My day rider is a 2012 Ultra with a 120 factory racing engine in it. That's my daily rider. And once you start looking at those, you kind of fall in love with them. It's like a good woman. Once you find the one you like, it's over. And I found that, I'll tell you. So my life with a motorcycle is it's been very rewarding, and I think anybody that is out there that is on the fence about coming and running with us, it's a once in a lifetime. The course that's been laid out by you guys and stops, and it's well organized. It's going to be an incredible event. I wouldn't want to miss out on it for nothing.
Yeah.
I encourage anybody that's out there to get on the line and get a bike and come run with us. The group that's going to run, it's a crazy group, but we have a lot of fun. And every night's different. You're in a different location. You've seen tremendous scenery. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Best show in town.
That's right. That's right.
Do you have any weird traditions before the start of every day, or like, a lucky pair of socks or something that you wear?
Well, yeah, I got a few quirky things. I guess I'm pretty much when it comes to the race, I'm pretty focused, and I have I want to get to bed early, get some rest. A lot of my buddies that are non-motorcycle guys, they think, you get done, you go out and have some drinks and dinner, and you hit the hay about midnight. I said, that's not how it goes. And I said, this is what it's really all about. So, I try to get to bed early. I have specific things. I like oatmeal. As far as in the morning, I'll have oatmeal and then some other bars. And then during the day, once that bike is fired up and rolling, the only time Dave Currier shuts down is for fuel or if he has to because of a mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get off the bike unless I absolutely have to.
Mm-hmm.
And now this course is set up where if you want to lay in the ditch and take a nap, go for it. You want to stop and get lunch, go for it. But one of the things that I do is I do that, try to have a good meal at night, and then get some sleep, But one of the things that you never want to give up is time, because you can be on mile 10 and at mile 35, you've got something wrong with your bike.
Mm-hmm.
And you might need that hour that you just took for lunch. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't get lunch. I eat mine on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple energy bars. I like hard-boiled eggs. But when it comes to the race moment, I get pretty focused. In fact, there was a guy that's been on several endurance runs, and he said, Dave, I met you. And he said, I thought you were kind of not very nice. In fact, he said, you're an asshole. And I said, really? And he said, I've been sitting here for 2 hours at the table with you. And he says, you're not a bad guy. And I said, no, I don't think I am. But I said, when it comes to race time, I'm pretty focused on what's in front of me. And, one of the things that we all want to do as riders and your support team is we want to make the public be part of this. But sometimes it's hard. You're in your tent. I got to change the top cylinder, get it off. I got to put rings on this thing. And I got people wanting to talk about, my grandpa had one of those. Can I take some pictures? Well, you don't want to blow them off because we want those people to talk good about antique motorcycle world.
Yeah.
But yet it's a tough call sometimes to accomplish that without saying, hey, I got to stay working here. I got a lot to do.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to be one of the guys that gets in at night and at 6 a.m. he's still not slept because he's been working on the motor all night.
Oh, you mean you're talking about us? That's the Team Banks crew over here. That's what we do.
Well, I got a lot of sleep, I might add.
Yeah. We don't get sleep on our end, but hey.
But I think as far as just me being focused on the race and having all the same lineup all the time, you try to take all the miscellaneous out of the equation so that you don't have to deal. It's pretty regimented, I guess, is what I would say in my case. Now, not everybody's like that. If you're on the run just to enjoy it, that's one thing. If you really want to hit it and have a chance of winning it, you're going to have to focus on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that's how every day, like when you're going out there, like for me, it was like always me versus that bike, every mile I can make is the better day, so.
Well, and it's a challenge to get an old bike like this from point A to B successfully. It's not easy.
No, not at all.
And you can do all you want, but sometimes there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Right. That's one of my favorite parts about this whole thing is when people see these in person. It's one thing to look at a book or a picture or whatever, or hear about it, but when you see the bike in person, and for us, it's kind of lost now. I'm not gonna say lost because obviously we have a passion for it, but like when you first see them for the first time, and you realize that people are literally getting on these things and riding them 4,000 miles across country, it's just like your mind is blown. It's like, oh my God, it's literally a bicycle.
It is. It's a bicycle with a motor on it. It is a prehistoric dinosaur you could ever find.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Kelsey's obviously running the entire event, and she's been working with all the communities and stops and getting everything coordinated so that we have a really good finish line every day. So every day you guys come in, we're going to have a physical finish line, and we're making the community and the town's part of it. And she's been working with those people, and she's like trying to explain to them like, hey, we're working on 100-year-old bikes here, and we're going to be doing this and this. And they're like, oh, you mean like, 19, not 1925. You're saying like, newer than that. And she's like, no, that's like the newest bike. Like 1925.
Well, I think when you go to these stops and the cities have done what they're supposed to do as far as publicly making the public aware of it, when they come down, they're just thrilled to see all this stuff, and they're actually coming in. And I think that's one of the neatest things when you have people watch you come in because they've never seen a bike like this run before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's getting everybody involved. That's our biggest. I think like that's our biggest thing we're trying to do with this, and Kelsey's doing a really good job of it. Is I think at these stops at the end of the day, it's going to be really well, received because we're going to have a physical finish line. You guys are actually going to ride through an arch, a finish line like an arch, and then it's going to be set up where people can be staged there and kind of come and watch, and they'll know about it ahead of time. These towns are going to put the bulletins out and let everybody know that we're coming and this is what we're doing. And I mean, some of the towns are going all out. Yeah. They're rolling out the red carpet for us. They got mayors coming in and just cool stuff like that. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, different people are going to be waving that finish flag. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes the support team and the rider excited about it, because at the end of the day, you've had a long, grueling day. Hopefully you didn't get lost. That's always a challenge. Make sure you take the right turn at the right spot.
Yeah, that's pretty hard.
But getting in, and if the city's there and they've got a really good hosted setup there where there's public there looking at stuff, it's fun because you get to talk to them. And there's a time there where you can spend a half hour, 45 minutes or an hour and talk to people. And I always like to get the little kids. When the kid's standing there, I get the mother or the dad and say, hey, let's get them up on the bike. You guys stand there. And I always try to take pictures of the mom or dad or both of them with the kid up on the bike. And that's something that kid will always remember.
Well, that's it. You might, one of those kids you do that with, that might spark a fire in them that lasts the rest of a lifetime. You know, their family might not be particular in bikes, but they might enjoy that, so you never know.
Do you want to walk around the shop a little bit and talk about what you got there?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Yep,
we got you.
Oh, there's your dog.
There's Hank.
There's Hank. He's giving a stretch.
Hey, what's up?
Big stretch.
How you doing, buddy?
Black lab.
Yeah, he's a black lab, a good hunting dog.
That's cool.
Okay, for all you folks at home, I'll just give you a quick panoramic view of my motorcycle shop. I keep all my bikes finished down at the lake. I've got a large gas station down there that's got all my bikes. So this is just a shop where I'm doing restoration work and prepping for the TransAm. So that's my 1915 twin that I ran the 18 Cannonball on. I finished 13th with that, made all the miles.
That's cool.
That's a great riding bike.
That's cool.
Compliments of Tom Banks. That's how I got to the end. Wouldn't have made it without him. And over here, I've got the 1915 twin that I just finished.
Man, that's
I'm waiting for a couple parts yet. I got a few nickel pieces to finish, and then I'm done with that one. And then just a quick look around the room here.
Yeah.
Some of the memorabilia from some of the other ones.
Yeah.
All your pennants. Those
That's
are cool.
Yeah, that's a 1910 battery model there. And then I've got the trophy in the middle from the 21 Cannonball.
Mhm.
And then over on the right, I've got another 1910. That's a Magneto model. And then I was in a magazine, local magazine, that's up on the wall there.
Mhm.
And then those are my wheels down there that I'm working on. That's a prototype disc that's coming off. We got a different rotor going on that one. But those are the two back wheels off the 1911.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, I just do my assembly here. I don't do any welding or anything. I do that at the shop.
Yeah.
And that's my new bike. I was going to see if I could enter it in the race. It's a Yamaha. It's a TransAmerican endurance motorcycle.
Oh wow! Look at that.
It's a powerhouse.
What year is that?
It's just not old enough.
No.
I think it's a 1980.
That's cool.
You just got to put a different set of cases in it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then I could maybe make it.
Yeah.
That's a 15 twin up there, original one I'm messing with.
Oh, nice.
And just some of the memorabilia on the wall and what have you.
Wait,
Wow.
that 15 twin doesn't have anything to do with the Harley Whisperer Bill Page, does it? Or was that something he was looking after? Or?
Well, yeah, I offered it to him, but he declined.
Oh wow, really?
I got a couple 15 twins that I'm probably going to get rid of the motors.
Gotcha.
That's one of them. I've got eight 1915 cylinders to get rid of too.
Wow.
And then this is the 11 on the other side of it. And my workbench, and of course, I've got a few Milwaukee tools.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's what the Milwaukee connoisseur looks like right there. That's probably not even a fifth of what you got.
But that's a closer look at what I'm doing with my seat.
Mhm.
If you can see it there.
Oh yeah,
we can see it.
You got hydraulic shocks on there. I see it.
Yeah, I'm trying some different things out. I got to get a better ride. It's been grueling.
Yeah.
But the bike's pretty well ripped down. I mean, it'll come together pretty quick once I'm assembling again.
Yep.
So that's kind of the shop. So
Very
that's
cool.
where I do all my stuff.
Let's do some rapid fire questions here. What is your favorite vintage motorcycle brand?
That's an easy one. Harley-Davidson.
That's right.
Woo.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
right.
that's for a lot of people.
Harley Strong.
What's a dream bike that you'd love to own?
Henderson. You know, and I would just like, I've listened to those go by me all the time.
Yeah. That's what
They got a sound that it's knockout. It's an incredible sound, and I think the Henderson is probably a more advanced motorcycle for its age than anything out there.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a bike.
What's your favorite tool in your garage? In any of your garages?
Well, obviously I'm partial to Milwaukee tools, but the number one tool for me is the bike lift. It might sound strange, but I'm not as young as I used to, and I don't crawl around on the floor as much. So the bike lift has been really critical in making it easier for me to do stuff.
Yeah.
Less painful.
Yep.
When you're on the road on one of these races, coffee or tea? Or neither?
None.
You're crazy.
I just eat on the road. I carry one bottle of water with me. And if you ever do stop, now we're not going to have any lunch stops. So you got to stay hydrated. That's a key item. And depending on what our weather's like, I don't normally drink a lot of water, but if I had to pick the two, I'd take some coffee. That wears me up good.
Finally, if you could ride anywhere in the world, where would you ride? Any bike. It doesn't necessarily have to be antique.
Switzerland. And the reason is I've been in Switzerland quite a bit hunting, and the roads are absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's an old bike or a classic bike or a modern bike, I think that would it's just, you're in the Alps and everything else. It's just way cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool to go over there and do that. Someday I want to. I know you and I have talked about it in the past, Dave, but I want to do that Alcan Highway someday.
Yeah, I want to too.
Well, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I know. I really want to do that.
Yeah.
And not on the 1911.
No, well, honestly, I don't know if that frame would make it. I think we'd be welding the frame a few times on that trip. So.
Well, so far it hasn't failed me.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories about that highway, though. It's pretty rough. I know Rinkers did it on their Indians, right?
Oh.
No, it's the TransAm is going to be a grueling ride. I mean, I'm not going to kid you, but I think if you're well prepared and we get some breaks on the weather, it's going to be super enjoyable.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so do you have any closing thoughts or advice for anybody on the TransAm, the crew, the riders, potential riders, whoever?
Well, I guess my comment to the riders and the crews that are out there, you and the bike need to be as well prepared as you can before you leave home. Make sure you're ready for the race, you and the bike. And then I think the next thing would be focus on each day. The map, the bike, that's a critical deal. Don't overlook anything. Have extra parts. You're not going to be able to find any parts on the road for a lot of these things. So hang on, I got to put Hank down. So he's my mascot. He's out here with me all the time. He's a lover.
Yeah.
So I think the thing about the parts is you want to make sure you've got all the critical parts for your bike that you might encounter you need over the course of the race. And I think that's really important. I think the other thing would be it's an inaugural run for the TransAm. I've got the T-shirt. It's an inaugural T-shirt. Everybody ought to have one. I'm not like Trump, but I am a inaugurated guy riding the race, and I think every one of you out there should own one. It's limited supply, so you better get there quick.
Thank you.
But I would say that anybody that's on the fence, come and join us. I think this is going to be an epic ride. You don't want to miss out. You'll be disappointed. It's going to be an incredible, awesome time, and I would encourage everybody to come and ride with us. You won't forget it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us and give us some insight.
Oh, and Dave is another board member, so we definitely want to thank you for that because I know you guys really put some time in there for a while, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the TransAm is an event that it's really going to propel antique motorcycling. It's another way for us to extend the life of the antique motorcycle world. I'm just thankful that we have an opportunity and very pleased that the event is going to happen. So with that, thanks again, and we'll see you on the road. Rock and roll, baby.